Okay, so I am Cerena Thomsen. I'm an English teacher up at Aspen High School. I've taught there for 13 years. And I am going to try to convince you to pick up the book Building a Better Teacher and maybe even possibly doing something crazy at the end of this presentation with the book Building a Better Teacher. So the book begins with the essential question is, are teachers born or are teachers made? So are we just kind of naturally drawn to the classroom, or is great teaching, effective teaching, something that can be taught through the knowledge of a set of skills? Do great teachers just figure it out as they go? Are they people destined for greatness like Michelle Pfeiffer in Dangerous Minds, Hilary Swank, and freedom writers? Just kind of figure it out as they go, all by themselves? Or my personal favorite would be Robin Williams from Dead Poets Society, a man who immediately engages his students with his crazy radical approach to teaching poetry, his natural charisma, and his gregarious nature that seem to be gifts rather than skills he acquired in some education class? Or are teachers, some people maybe just not cut out for teaching, maybe due to getting into it for the wrong reasons, summers off, or maybe through the inability to connect with other human beings. They're not outgoing, not gregarious, not nurturing by nature. So in these classrooms, you either have students who are in a classroom of a great natural-born teacher where the students are fully engaged and hanging on every word of that charismatic, amazing teacher. They're excited to come to class for every lesson. Or maybe you recognize this Bueller, completely checked out, apathetic, and not at all engaged. Is that because of the teacher or not? And is it skills that we can learn to create the classrooms that we want to teach in, the teachers that we want to be? We all want to be Hilary Swank, right? Well, for many reasons, but we're teaching in freedom writers, that dynamic, amazing classroom where everyone's immersed in the curriculum, totally engaged, and we know that that's possible. Great teachers are made, and we know we can improve. We may fall for that whole media portrayal of, the natural-born teachers, but in our hearts and our minds, we know that we can become those great teachers. But how? As I've so many times in my life, anytime I've tried to become better at something, I turn to books. I don't usually put them on my head, I actually read them. I remember reading Right Beside Them by Penny Kittle, and it changed the way that I teach. And then luckily this summer I discovered Building a Better Teacher by Elizabeth Green. This book helped me understand the history of teaching, how we got to where we are with effective teaching stuff, and the skills actually required to become better teachers. So it's a great book that opens with a teacher who's sharing her thought process as the school day begins, and all of the questions she goes through as she begins her day. Starting with, how do I start the class or arrange the desk, to how do I help students vault over hurdles life has thrown at them, an actual quote. Not even mentioning this, how to teach the curriculum. On top of all of those questions, how do you actually deal with the state standards and the things you are supposed to be teaching? This book uses a lot of math examples, but as an English teacher, I still really appreciate it and think it applies to all classrooms. Decisions, decisions, decisions. We make them all the time. In the chapter Founding Fathers, Elizabeth Green talks about Lee Shulman and how he wanted to figure out how people learn, and he started studying doctors and their decision-making process, and then he switched to teachers, and he said that was actually more important and more germane, because we study how people actually learn. When thinking about studying teachers, where would you go to figure this out? Well, you do a lot of tests in your lab, right? They finally figured out that they should probably look to models. Not those models. My students told me to leave this sliding because it would get me a joke, but... And I said it's going to be up there for 15 seconds. That usually doesn't feel like a long time, but when you've got models, it actually did feel like a long time. So Green actually gives us several models of good teaching, which I found really helpful. She gives us kind of decision-making of a teacher, how she goes through that decision-making process, an evolution of a first-year teacher to a veteran teacher, and then she talks about great teaching in Japan and how people travel miles to see great teachers. So what I learned from reading this book is that excellent teachers check their egos at the door, and they open the doors of their classroom to everyone else. They constantly reflect and question. They're not afraid to say they don't know, and they want people to observe them. So what can you do now? Well, get the book. Building a Better Teacher by Elizabeth Green, and appreciate what you already really do. That's the thing I loved about this book. It made me realize how many decisions I make and how I'm actually doing a great job already. And you maybe do something crazy like start a book club at your school, which I did. I have 30 teachers in the Aspen School District now involved in my book study of Building a Better Teacher, and I have advice for you if you are interested in doing it. I did it, and so can you.